whiffed on so many jobs that at this point I don't really fear failure. Like, it's not that scary to fail. It's scary to not know if you're going to fail. That's like a much more disconcerting feeling in my experience.
Did you find Weird New Jersey, or did Weird New Jersey find you?
I found them. I started reading the magazine when I was about 16. I found it in a comic book store, and I was just like, this is awesome. Like, it's a magazine about ghosts in my state, like abandoned mental hospitals and stuff, and all these things that I'd like heard kids talk about. So I started sending them articles when I was about 16, and they started just publishing them. And then I went to a book signing, and I met them, and they were like, you're a child? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, we've been publishing things you wrote. And I was like, yeah, I'm into it. Like, I'm all about it. So then when I was 19, they hired me.
What are your stories from it?
It was weird, because like a lot of my duties were like drive around in this old van with a bunch of boxes and drop off boxes of magazines at bookstores. Or like when we would do mailings, we had 5,000 people on the mailing list, and that day I had to lick 5,000 stamps and 5,000 envelopes personally. Like, that was sometimes the job.
Are you dabbling in comedy this whole time?
It was kind of, I started at Weird New Jersey a week before my 20th birthday, and then the next week I took my first improv class at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. So it was like right at the same time that I started working this job, started dipping my toes into comedy.
So at what point did the hobby become the career?
The first paid comedy work I got was like when Conan O'Brien was in New York. They used to hire me to do sketches, mostly because I was so young looking that they could hire me to play a teenager and wouldn't have to like a kid, they have to have actual child labor laws and things like that. Like, I could play a high school student. But then it was kind of this really clean break. It was nuts. It's kind of like I was like really hustling hard, doing a ton of shows. And then I got a call one day asking me to submit to be a writer on this show in LA. And that would happen from time to time, and nothing ever came from it. And then they wanted to hire me as a writer's assistant. And it was like a situation, I think I got hired on a Thursday, and they told me I started on Monday. So I had to just like quit and drive cross country and get out there. My bosses were not pleased, because they were my friends too. Like, my boss at Weird New Jersey he's kind of like a father figure to me. He was like really like a second dad in a lot of ways. And when I was just like, hey, I gotta quit, he was just like, wait, what? Like, right now? And I was like, I have to go. So it was really overwhelming. It was kind of like a bucket of ice water to the face, but that started everything. And then at some point I just started getting consistent enough that that's been my sole job for 7 or 8 years now as comedian. And it's every year I don't know if it's gonna remain that way. I just pray. Every year I'm just like, I hope this lasts. We'll see.
Ooh! Okay, what's your arm?
Ooh! Are you sure this is the best way to do this?
No!
Ooh!
It's hard doing what you do. I mean, there's no security.
Oh yeah.
There's no certainty. Do you ever wish I just had a desk job and that were enough for me?
100%. Like, I hit a point, I was probably around 25 when it really hit me in a big way, where I was like, oh, all I've ever done is comedy and like work at a magazine about ghosts. Like, I can't get a job ever. Like, it would be very, very hard. If I like went to get an actual corporate job at this point with some safety and a 401k and all those things you want, like, my resume would honestly say like comedian, ghost hunter. That's it. Like, I can't get a real job. And it was scary. And that's over and over again, that has like caused real panic attacks, like actual, like, I see a shrink to talk about how much panic my career causes me.
I do want you to know, if this were a job interview, it would be going terribly.
Bad, right?
Really
I'm really rambly.
You just told me you have no skills.
Very few skills. I really don't. I'm like, what am I cut out for? I don't know what to do. I don't really know how computers work. And like, I'm not a big guy, can't do like a physical thing.
What's your advice to someone who's watching who does comedy or has another dream and is trying to figure out when that right moment is to quit their day job?
Well, for me, I didn't really go all in on it until I was about 27. I was like in and out of these gigs and really stressing hard. And then I hit the first point in my adult life where, like, if I had to pay my rent that day, I didn't have it. Like, if the landlord knocked on the door, I didn't have my rent. And I was crying, I was miserable. I was like, it's done, like, I don't have it. I ran out of money. This was the experiment failed. And then that was probably like on a Monday or Tuesday, and at the very end of that week, I booked my first ever movie role. And it was like, oh, it paid enough that I can get through the end of the year. And it really didn't feel like a coincidence. It really felt like this thing of like, you have to go all in. You kind of have to bet on yourself to see what happens. And it's a 50-50 shot at the end of the day. Either you can make it or you can't. So I think like, you got to work really hard on your craft, and you got to get to a point where you're confident that you're actually good. And at that point, at some point, you have to go all in and actually try it, would be my advice. And it's terrifying, but at least you know.